John Stuart Mill was a 19th-century English philosopher, economist, and civil servant. He was an influential contributor to social theory, and political economy. He has been called the most influential English-speaking philosopher of the 19th century. Mill's conception of liberty justified the freedom of the individual in opposition to unlimited state control. He was a proponent of utilitarianism, an ethical theory developed by Jeremy Bentham, which holds that the best action is the one that maximizes utility, which is usually defined as happiness or pleasure. Mill's work on liberty, democracy, and economics has had a profound impact on modern political thought and has been widely debated and discussed by philosophers, political theorists, and economists. John Stuart Mill's most important works include On Liberty, 1859, A Defense of Individual Liberty, in which Mill argues that individuals should be free to think and act as they see fit, as long as they do not harm others. Utilitarianism, 1861, An Explanation and Defense of the Ethical Theory of Utilitarianism, which holds that actions are right to the extent that they promote happiness or pleasure, and wrong to the extent that they produce suffering or unhappiness. The Subjection of Women, 1869, A Defense of Women's Rights, in which Mill argues that men and women should be treated as equals and that women should have the same rights and opportunities as men. Considerations on Representative Government, 1861, A Discussion of the Principles of Democracy and how they should be applied in the formation of representative governments. The Principles of Political Economy, 1848, A Comprehensive Treatise on Political Economy, in which Mill discusses issues such as the nature of wealth, the role of government in the economy, and the effects of economic policies on society. On the Definition of Political Economy, and on the Method of Investigation proper to it, 1836, an early work in which Mill defines political economy and outlines the methodologies that should be used to study it. John Stuart Mill's political philosophy can be summarized as follows: individual liberty. Mill believed that individuals should be free to think and act as they see fit, as long as they do not harm others. He argued that the role of the state should be limited to protecting individuals from harm and ensuring that they have the opportunity to develop their own abilities and pursue their own goals. Democracy. Mill was a strong advocate of democracy and believed that it was the best form of government because it allowed people to have a say in the decisions that affected their lives. He argued that the most important principle of democracy was the idea of one person, one vote, which ensured that all people had an equal say in the political process. Social justice. Mill believed that the state had a role to play in promoting social justice and ensuring that all members of society had the opportunity to live a fulfilling life. He argued that the government should provide education and other social services to ensure that everyone had the opportunity to succeed. Utilitarianism. Mill was a utilitarian, which means that he believed that the best action is the one that maximizes utility, or happiness or pleasure. He argued that the best way to determine what actions were right or wrong was to consider their consequences for the greatest number of people. John Stuart Mill had many opponents and critics throughout his career. Some of his most notable opponents include Benthamites. Mill was a utilitarian and a follower of Jeremy Bentham, but he later developed his own version of utilitarianism that differed from Bentham's in several important ways. Benthamites, who were followers of Bentham, criticized Mill's version of utilitarianism as being too intellectual and insufficiently focused on the practical consequences of actions. Conservatives. Mill's liberalism and support for democracy and individual rights made him a target of criticism from conservatives, who believed in tradition and the authority of established institutions. Marxists. Mill's views on economics and social justice were often at odds with those of Karl Marx and other Marxists, who believed in the abolition of private property and the creation of a classless society. Feminists. Although Mill was a strong advocate for women's rights and wrote extensively on the subject, some feminists have criticized him for not going far enough in his support for women's equality.